It's 20,000 years ago, and someone in your group has done something terrible. Maybe they stole food during a hard winter. Maybe they hurt someone. Maybe they killed someone. And now everyone is looking at each other. Because here's the problem. There are no police. There is no judge. There is no jail to throw them in. No court to decide their fate. No written law to point to. There is just the group. A few dozen people who have known this person their entire life, and a decision that has to be made tonight. What do you do with them? This is the story of justice, before there were any rules for justice. And what ancient humans actually did is more sophisticated and more chilling than you'd ever guess. Let's start by killing the obvious assumption, because it's the wrong one. When you picture justice in the deep past, you probably picture chaos, brute force. The strongest person takes what they want, and everyone else just has to deal with it. Might makes right. A lawless world where the only rule is whoever has the biggest club wins. It's a compelling image. It's also almost exactly backwards. Because here's the thing nobody tells you. Hunter-gatherer bands, the kind of societies humans lived in for the overwhelming majority of our existence, were not lawless free-for-alls ruled by the strongest. In fact, by the standards of almost every society that came after them, they were astonishingly equal and astonishingly controlled. There usually was no chief who could boss everyone around. There was no permanent ruler, no king, no one who got to simply impose their will. And that wasn't an accident or a lack of organization. It was, as far as we can tell, a deliberate and fiercely defended way of life. Ancient humans appear to have hated being dominated, and they built an entire invisible system to make sure no one could get away with it. To understand that system, you have to start with the single most underrated force in human history: talking about each other, behind their backs. Gossip. We treat it as a petty little vice, the thing you're not supposed to do, a waste of time. But step back and look at what gossip actually is, mechanically. It's the transmission of information about people's behavior through a community without those people present. It is how a group keeps a running, shared, constantly updated record of who can be trusted and who can't, who pulls their weight and who slacks, who shares and who hoards, who's honest, who's a bully, who cheated whom, and who still owes what to whom. In a world with no written records, no contracts, no police reports, gossip was the database. It was the collective memory of the group's moral life. And everyone was both a contributor and a subject. And this is why your reputation in an ancient band was not a social nicety. It was everything. It was your safety net, your insurance policy, your standing, your survival. A good reputation meant people shared with you when you were hungry, helped you when you were hurt, defended you when you were threatened. A bad one meant the opposite. And in a world where you could not survive alone, that was a slow-motion catastrophe. The anthropologist Robin Dunbar even argued that language itself may have evolved largely for this purpose, as a tool for social bonding and tracking who's who, a way to groom and monitor a group too large to manage by physical closeness alone. We may, in a real sense, have learned to talk in order to keep tabs on each other. Gossip isn't a corruption of language. Gossip might be the reason we have it. So that's the foundation. Constant, inescapable observation and a shared memory that never forgot. Now, what happened when someone actually crossed a line? Because the genius of ancient justice is that it didn't jump straight to violence. It had a ladder, and it climbed it, one rung at a time. The first rung was the gentlest, and you use it yourself. Ridicule, mockery, the joke at someone's expense. In many documented foraging societies, the first response to someone getting too big for their boots, bragging, hoarding, throwing their weight around, was humor. People would tease them, make fun of them, deflate them with laughter. There are famous accounts of hunter-gatherer groups who, when a man brought back a large kill and started acting like a big shot about it, would deliberately mock the meat, call it skinny and worthless, precisely to puncture his ego and remind him that no one here gets to feel superior. It sounds light. It was not. It was a precision tool for keeping every individual level with the group. And it worked, because the alternative, being laughed at by everyone you know, is something humans are exquisitely, painfully sensitive to. If ridicule didn't work, the group climbed to the next rung. Direct criticism, complaint, public disapproval. People would tell the offender openly that they were out of line. The whole group's mood would turn. And if that failed, things got colder. Literally, the silent treatment. The cold shoulder, but at the scale of an entire community. People would stop talking to you, stop cooperating with you, stop including you. Imagine that, in a group of 30 people who are your entire world. No strangers to turn to, no other community down the road, just the slow, total withdrawal of everyone you have ever known. For a deeply social animal, that is a special kind of torture, and it was meant to be. It was the group saying, with silence, change your behavior or face something worse. And here's a pattern that researchers have noticed, which is genuinely fascinating. In these egalitarian bands, the people most likely to be targeted by all this corrective pressure were not the weak. They were the strong, the bullies, the would-be dominators, the ones trying to set themselves above everyone else. Anthropologist Christopher Boehm called this a reverse dominance hierarchy. In most primate groups, the dominant individual controls everyone below. But in human foraging bands, the many at the bottom flipped it and used gossip, ridicule, shame, and the threat of collective action to control the would-be dominant few. The group, acting together, was stronger than any single strongman, and they used that strength deliberately to keep anyone from rising above the rest. It's one of the most quietly radical political arrangements in human history, and it ran with no constitution and no writing for tens of thousands of years. But, and you knew there was a but, sometimes none of it worked. Sometimes a person could not, or would not, be brought back into line. They kept stealing. They kept bullying. They became violent. They became, in the cold calculation of a group living at the edge of survival, a genuine threat to everyone. And this is where ancient justice stopped being soft and became as serious as it gets. The first heavy option was exile, being cast out. And I need you to understand what that actually meant, because it's easy to hear banishment and picture someone walking off to start a new life somewhere else. That is a modern fantasy. In the ancient world, to be expelled from your group was very often a death sentence, just a slower one. Humans are not equipped to survive alone in the wild. We made it this far precisely by sticking together, by pooling our knowledge and our labor and our protection. Strip a person of all of that. Send them out alone into a landscape, full of predators and rival groups and winters, with no one to watch their back or share their food, and the odds were brutal. Exile didn't always kill you directly. It just removed everything that was keeping you alive and let the world finish the job. And then there was the final rung, execution. In a number of documented small-scale societies, a person who became truly dangerous, a repeat murderer, someone whose violence threatened the whole group, could be deliberately killed by the community. But here's the part that reveals just how sophisticated this was. It was often done by consensus, and frequently in a way that spread the responsibility across many hands or assigned it to a close relative of the offender. Why? Because in a small, tightly bound group, a killing creates a terrible risk: revenge. If one person or family killed the offender's kin might retaliate, igniting a blood feud that could tear the band apart for generations. So the solution was chillingly elegant. Make it everyone's act. If the whole group agrees, and the whole group is implicated, there is no single target for vengeance. The execution becomes not a murder, but a collective judgment carried out by the community as a whole. It was capital punishment with the blood deliberately smeared across every hand, so that no single hand could be blamed. Justice by consensus, designed from the ground up to prevent the cycle of revenge it might otherwise start. Now, I have to be honest with you, the way I always try to be, because it would be easy to make all this sound noble and wise, and it wasn't always. I've been describing a system, but systems are run by people, and people are not always fair. The same machinery that humbled bullies could also be turned on the innocent. Gossip can be weaponized. A false rumor, spread by someone with a grudge, could destroy a person who'd done nothing wrong. The group's judgment could curdle into scapegoating, turning on the odd one out, the unpopular, the different. Not because they broke a rule, but because they were easy to blame. Shame and ostracism, aimed at the wrong target, are instruments of cruelty, as easily as justice. And there was no appeal. No outside authority to say, wait, you've got this wrong. The group was judge, jury, and executioner. And when the group was wrong, there was no one to stop it. We should not romanticize this. Living under the constant, total, inescapable judgment of everyone you know is its own kind of prison. Even when it works, and when it failed without mercy. And one more honest caveat, we are reconstructing a lot of this from the study of recent foraging societies, not from direct prehistoric evidence. Because again, behavior doesn't fossilize. These groups are not perfect time machines, and there was surely enormous variety across the deep past. So hold all of this as our best evidence-guided picture, not a documentary of one specific ancient night. But step back and the deepest point comes into focus, because it answers a question you might not have known you were asking. Why do you feel the things you feel? Why does unfairness make your blood boil, even when it doesn't affect you? Why does the thought of everyone finding out you did something shameful make you want to disappear? Why do you feel guilt, that gnawing private punishment, even when no one caught you? The answer is that these feelings are the ancient justice system installed inside you. For our ancestors, cooperation wasn't optional, it was survival, and a group full of cheats and bullies and freeloaders would have fallen apart and died. So evolution did something remarkable. It built the rules into our emotions. The burn of moral outrage is your cheating detector firing. The crushing weight of shame is your brain screaming that your reputation, your lifeline, is in danger. Guilt is the group's judgment, internalized so deeply that you punish yourself before anyone else even finds out. Your conscience is not separate from the ancient band around the fire. Your conscience is that band, carried inside your skull, still watching, still judging tens of thousands of years later. You evolved to police yourself because the humans who didn't, who felt no shame, no guilt, no fear of the group's judgment, were the ones the group cast out. We are the descendants of the ones who cared what everyone thought. So when you zoom all the way out, what did ancient humans do? When someone broke the rules, they watched, they remembered, they talked, they mocked and criticized and shunned. They built an invisible web of reputation and gossip and shame so effective it kept order without a single police officer or written law for the vast majority of human existence. And when that web wasn't enough, they cast people out or, by the agreement of all, ended them carefully, collectively, so the violence wouldn't spread. It was a justice system with no buildings, no documents, and no officials. It ran entirely on human nature, because it was human nature. And here's where it comes back to you. We've spent the last few thousand years building the machinery your ancestors never had. Written laws, courts, police, prisons, an entire apparatus designed to take justice out of the hands of the emotional, fallible group and place it in something more consistent and, ideally, more fair. That was a profound achievement, and most of the time it serves us far better than the old way ever could. But the old way never actually left. You still live and die by your reputation. You still feel the lash of shame and the heat of outrage. And we have, just recently, built a tool that recreates the ancient world at terrifying scale. The internet, where gossip travels to millions, where a reputation can be destroyed in an afternoon, where the whole tribe can turn on one person and shun them all at once with no appeal, exactly like the worst version of the ancient band. We didn't escape our ancestors' justice system, we just gave it a much, much larger fire to gather around. So here's my question for you. Now that you know where these feelings come from, the next time you feel that flash of outrage at someone who broke the rules, do you trust it or do you wonder where it's really pointing? Let me know in the comments. Until then, take care of yourselves and be a little gentle with each other out there. I'll see you soon.